It started with something simple, something any dog owner could relate to. I'd been walking my dog, Benji, every morning at 7 a.m. He was a small terrier, energetic, and loved nothing more than running through the lush grass of our neighborhood. It was quiet, peaceful, just the way I liked it. But everything changed one Thursday morning when I received a letter from the HOA. The letter was a formal notification of a fine for violating the neighborhood's no pet on common grounds rule. I was stunned. We had never been told about the specific rule. Sure, there were some guidelines posted around, but nothing about keeping pets off the grass. I immediately called the HOA office, but my inquiry was met with an icy response. The rule is very clear, Mrs. Clark. You are in violation and must pay the fine immediately to avoid further penalties, the representative said, his tone cold and condescending. I was furious. Benji was my companion, and walking him was part of my daily routine. He wasn't bothering anyone. There was no reason to penalize us. Over the next week, I found myself researching the HOA's rules. The more I read, the more frustrated I became. Not only was the HOA fine completely unjustified, but the rules themselves seemed absurd. There were countless small, petty regulations that impacted daily life, from how you could decorate your own porch to when you could take out your trash. It felt as though the HOA was more interested in controlling us than creating a community. I decided to fight back. I wasn't going to just roll over and pay the fine. I started attending the HOA meetings, hoping to voice my concerns. But when I arrived, it became clear that the board members were not interested in hearing from residents like me. They were dismissive, patronizing even. They treated my complaint as though it was a minor nuisance. "We don't make the rules, Mrs. Clark," one board member said with a smug smile. "We're just enforcing them." Something inside me snapped. I couldn't let this go. If they could fine me for walking my dog, what was next? Would they tell me I couldn't open my windows on certain days? Or that I couldn't decorate my house the way I liked? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the HOA had way too much power over our lives. Then I had an idea so audacious that at first I couldn't even believe I was considering it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was the only way to truly get back at the HOA. I would buy the land that the HOA controlled. It took a lot of effort, but I found out that the land in question, the common areas, the streets, the parks, was up for sale. The HOA didn't own it outright, they only managed it. With the right resources, I could buy it, and that's exactly what I did. A few months later, I was the proud owner of the land the HOA had once used to control us. I couldn't help but feel a rush of power. I was in control now. The next step was to take action. I posted a notice to the neighborhood announcing that, effective immediately, the HOA would no longer be allowed to operate in our community. I'd bought the land, and as the new owner, I had the right to make the rules. The reaction from the neighbors was immediate. Some were shocked, others were thrilled, and a few were downright furious. The board members were beside themselves, trying to figure out how to undo what I had done. But it was too late. They couldn't reverse the sale. I wasn't just going to remove the HOA. No, I had bigger plans. I banned the HOA board members from the neighborhood entirely. They weren't allowed to come anywhere near the property. As the owner, I had the right to refuse entry, and I used it. The feeling of power was intoxicating. But it didn't end there. I also introduced my own rules for the community. There would be no more absurd fines. People could walk their dogs freely, decorate their homes however they liked, and live without fear of petty controlling regulations. The neighborhood started to change. People were happier. They felt freer. The old HOA members tried everything they could to reclaim control. They tried legal action, public outcry, and even organizing a protest. But it was no use. The land was mine. I'd won. In the months that followed, the neighborhood flourished. The people who had once been afraid to speak out against the HOA now felt empowered. They thanked me for giving them their lives back. I was hailed as a hero by many, and a villain by the few who still supported the old regime. But honestly, I didn't care. The power of the HOA was gone, and I'd made sure it never came back. One afternoon, as I was walking Benji through the park, I saw a former board member from the HOA. He had been one of the most vocal in support of the rules that had gotten me fined. He gave me a look of disbelief as I walked past him. I could see the anger in his eyes, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had done what I needed to do. I had taken back control. I stopped for a moment and turned to him. "You were right about one thing," I said, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "You don't make the rules anymore. I do." With that, I continued my walk, Benji happily trotting beside me. The world felt right again. The HOA had tried to break me, to control me, but in the end, I had turned the tables. The lesson? Never let anyone control your life, especially not a group of people who have no real stake in your happiness.